because otherwise they might be shocked. But in any case, you can look at that book. I wrote that up for my classes here in 1983. And anyway, the other group are under the influence of well, basically one, but DeVoe is Millick's sponsor. Two Dominican priests, Father Joseph Miller and Millick from Poland, who did all the work for Father Roland DeVoe. So those three people dominate Dead Sea Scrolls studies. And the reason cross is because when the scrolls first came in to the American school in Jerusalem, where I spent some time too, he was sent out by William F. Albright, who was the doyen then of American archaeology, William F. Albright, to represent him. He was a graduate student. He was Johnny on the spot, and he was able to look at the scrolls as they first came in, and then, of course, Harvard hired him, and he's been the last word in scroll studies ever since, and he still is exercising tremendous hold over his over the PhDs that he produced. And you look around, and all the jobs around the country are held by his PhD. Why? Because he had the manuscripts. I mean, you could go and study this material at a place like University of Tennessee or UC Santa Barbara, but no one would hire you or think you a credible person because you weren't given an in into the field. You have to go to these people, and then the place he spawned now at Notre Dame, to even become credible in this field. Princeton's a little bit in on it more now too. All people who got manuscripts from the official team, if you want to read about that, it's in the Dead Sea Scroll Deception by Michael Bajan and Richard Lee, the same two guys that did the lawsuit in London against the Da Vinci Code and lost. It was a ridiculous suit, and they lost millions of pounds, and they're both in the poorhouse now. But, you know, nothing wrong. The guy did rip them off, but you can't sue a novelist for ripping you off. Novelists rip everybody off. But everyone assumed that they were in it for the publicity, that they weren't really serious about the case, and that they would have pulled out. But they didn't pull out, and they lost the court costs, which in England is £2 million. £2 million just for the court costs. Don't go to court if you can avoid it. Don't ever go to court if you can avoid it, because you'll get clobbered. I got into the court over the scrolls, and I wasn't even responsible for what happened. This Herschel Schenck's Biblical Archaeology Review editor put a publisher's forward to our publication of the Dead Sea Scroll photographs in the facsimile edition. This professor up at Claremont, James Robinson, who built the Nag Hammadi roadblock, and he put a forward there, and to his forward he attached some attachments that weren't even part of the forward, and in one of his attachments he had a picture of a document that had been published in Poland. Now, he knew what he was doing. He knew that it would draw a lawsuit, but we never even saw it. But because our names were on the volume as, I think it said, compiled by or arranged by, with an index, with an introduction, Robert Eisenman and James Robinson, the Israeli court judge, who ultimately went to the High Court, and she was on the panel on the High Court that reconsidered the case there, said Eisenman and Robinson translate that arranged by, the pictures we meant, edited by. We never said we edited it. And therefore, since they edited it, they edited the publisher's forward, therefore they're responsible with the publisher for his forward, therefore they're all liable together, which is what the person bringing the suit wanted. So, I mean, if you can understand that, it's so complicated. Ultimately, it has to do with the publisher of the book putting into his forward, which he shouldn't have written anyway, and never showing it to us, and never, it shouldn't be allowed. No publishers put forwards into books, but he was so worried, or he wanted to get such credit for it, that he did this and then put an attachment, which never was shown to us, which was something a Polish scholar published, which was a version of some work that an Israeli scholar had done reconstructing a document called MMT. If you can understand the intricacies, so what lawyers do is they look for the weakest thing. And they found this thing, they wanted to sue us because we published the pictures, but they couldn't sue us because we published the pictures because the pictures are the right of the photographer. And they didn't know who the photographer was who took the pictures. So they couldn't sue us for the pictures. So they found this thing, which we didn't need to publish anyway because we already had the pictures of that thing that had been reconstructed in Poland. They didn't sue the guy in Poland because he had no money. It's called deep pockets. People go after people with deep pockets. So they go after who they perceive has deep pockets, i.e. people in America, the guy with the magazine, and they wanted to punish us anyway. So we got brought in. To make a long story short, talking about legal fees, that cost me $65,000. Even though the court found that Shanks, the publisher, was liable to us, Robinson and me, for having done that, because we cross-sued, if you understand what that is, in the court. But that took 10 years of gray hairs to determine all that. He finally paid all the damages and the fees, but he wouldn't pay our lawyers' fees. He paid all the damages and the court fees and all that because the court made him, but the court didn't make him pay our legal fees. Our legal fees were $65,000, mine was $65,000. And that's just a little sort of adjective. So I can just tell you that don't get into court cases. Do not get into court cases. Even if you can break even, you'll end up paying the lawyers 3/4 of everything anyway. And you'll get so many gray hairs, it isn't worth it. So my friends in England, in any case, the book that tells about all this is Bajan and Lee's Dead Sea Scroll Deception, as I told you, how these people control the field. And they got all that information from me. And you'll see it in footnotes in the back of that book. I checked it all over, and I know that that part of their book is absolutely correct. So you can look that up if you're interested in this problem. All right. I know I went way down a swirl. I'm coming back. I thought you might be interested in stories of that kind. To come back to this, then, why don't they see this? Why don't those scholars see this? I think that it's because it's a cartel of people. So they're always surprised when someone out of the blue comes up with something as credible and impressive, or even more impressive than their work. And if you'll see that, I don't think any of those people I mentioned have 2,000-page books on this subject. So they go by the superficial, because it's the easiest way, external parameters of things like handwriting analysis, which is not a secure analysis, and carbon testing, which